The moment the traffic light turned green, everything fell apart. My vision doubled, then blurred, then vanished into chaos. Cars screamed past in a blur of horns and heat. I clutched the wheel knuckles white. The buildings around me swayed like paper in wind. The intersection at Charles and Boylston was jammed, and I was smack in the middle of it, about to lose consciousness. Not now. Not today. I can't miss the Winford pitch, I muttered. My voice felt foreign, slurred, wrong. My hands slid off the wheel like wet towels, limbs limp, useless. This was the biggest day of my career, and I was blacking out behind the wheel of my own car. "Ma'am, are you okay?" A voice outside the window. Panicked. Human. I couldn't answer. My lips refused to form the words. My foot slipped. The car lurched forward. Headlights filled the windshield. Shouts, screams, then impact. And silence. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in the car. I was on my back. Something was beeping. Fluorescent lights above me hummed steadily. I was tangled in wires. My throat burned. My leg gone. No, not gone. Just frozen in a cast. My neck in a brace. Riley, a voice whispered beside me. "You're awake." Jonah, my husband, wrinkled shirt, pale skin, eyes rimmed red. "You're okay," he breathed, brushing hair from my forehead. "You're okay." I wanted to speak, ask about the meeting, the crash, the world. Instead, I croaked, "How long?" 17 hours, Jonah said gently. "You passed out mid-intersection. Another driver barely missed you, but your car flipped. EMTs had to cut you out." I blinked slowly. Pieces of memory returned like broken glass, a swirl of headlights, my body refusing me. That final terrifying thought, "Don't let it end like this." "And my family?" I asked. Jonah's mouth flattened. "There's something I need to tell you." He reached for my phone, hesitated, then held it up. "The cops called your mom. She answered while boarding a cruise. With Drew. Drew, my younger sister. She told them it was a relief to have the mooch off their hands." My chest didn't break. It hardened. Last Thanksgiving, I wired $52,000 to cover Drew's grad school debt. That same night, she popped open a box of new designer heels while our mom smiled and toasted her with cranberry cider. Me, I washed dishes in silence while they called me the reliable one. Reliable, meaning invisible, replaceable, payable. "Jonah," I said softly. "Bring every financial record, every transfer, every loan, every dollar." His jaw clenched. "Are you sure? They left for a vacation I paid for while I lay broken in a hospital bed. I'm sure." By the next morning, Jonah was back, laptop open, stack of files in his hand. I sat up slowly, ignoring the pain, and began to sever everything. First went the house payments, their house bought in my name 15 years ago. Then Drew's car lease, tuition reimbursement, cell plan. Cut it all, I said. Every link, every drain. Jonah nodded, quiet and focused. We had been married 5 years. He had witnessed the slow bleed of my family's entitlement. The way they loved what I gave, not who I was. As we worked, my phone buzzed. An Instagram notification. Drew had posted a picture. She, Mom, and Dad were on the cruise deck. Cocktail glasses raised. The caption read, "So grateful for the peace that comes with cutting off toxicity, # family first, # self-care." That's when I knew. They didn't just forget about me. They replaced me. I filed every termination myself. The bank accounts I'd given them access to revoked. The emergency fund they always borrowed from gone. The credit card tied to my name that Drew used for errands canceled. And when the hospital allowed visitors a week later, I declined them. The front desk called to confirm. I said, "Tell them I've decided not to wake up in their world anymore." That hallway confrontation was next level. I heard Drew's voice through the door. "She's not thinking clearly. She's confused. Probably concussed. We're family." That word didn't land the way they thought it did. Jonah sat by my bed. "You okay?" "I'm getting there." And I meant it. For the first time in 33 years, I wasn't bending backward for people who wouldn't bend a finger for me. I was healing in more ways than one. The cast on my leg temporary, the wounds in my heart finally closing. But what came next would change everything. They showed up 2 days later like nothing had happened. My mother wore oversized sunglasses, probably to hide the fact she hadn't cried once. Drew walked beside her, hair curled like she was heading to brunch. And my father, well, he always looked tired, but never sorry. The nurse knocked gently before speaking. "Your family's here. They said they've come a long way. Do you want to see them now? I didn't even look up from the insurance form in my hand. Tell them I said thanks for finally showing up, and that no, they can't come in." I heard the nurse walk away, her voice soft as she delivered the message. The silence that followed was delicious. Then came the sounds. Shoes pacing outside. My mom's dramatic whisper. Drew's frustration rising. "We're her family. She's being ungrateful. This is ridiculous. We flew in from the Bahamas for this." The audacity hit like a punch I didn't feel. Because here's the thing, when people reveal who they are, believe them. And they'd revealed it all. Every missed birthday. Every guilt trip masked as a favor. Every time I paid their bills while being called selfish behind my back. It wasn't a one-time betrayal. It was a pattern that stretched across decades. I turned to Jonah, who was quietly setting my water glass down. "They think I'm bluffing," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "You're not." "Exactly." That evening, Jonah and I finalized the revocation of the power of attorney I had signed years ago. At the time, it felt responsible just in case something happened. Now, it felt like a loaded weapon I'd handed to people who would have used it to drain me dry. One form, one signature, one locked vault they'd never access again. 3 days after that, the hospital cleared me for discharge. Dr. Patel said my recovery was faster than anyone predicted. I didn't correct her when she said it must have been love and support that helped. She didn't know it was spite. Nothing heals a bruised spirit faster than realizing you were the only one ever holding the damn thing together. Jonah pushed the wheelchair toward the elevator. I didn't need it, but hospital policy, you know. As we passed the waiting room, I saw them. My family, staring at their phones. Not a single "thank God you're okay." No flowers, no handmade cards, just expressions that said we're only here because something's wrong with our bank apps. And I didn't stop. I rolled right past them like I would any strangers at the grocery store. Not my people, not anymore. Outside, Jonah helped me into the car. He handed me my coat, zipped up my bag, and checked twice for my comfort. And that's when I realized this is what real care feels like. It doesn't arrive late with excuses. It doesn't ask for money mid-tragedy. It just shows up and stays. As we pulled into our driveway, I saw it. A delivery box on the porch. Inside, 2 envelopes. One stamped, "Final Notice." The other handwritten and sloppy. Drew's handwriting. "I know you're mad, but we need to talk. Things are getting serious with the house." I didn't even open it. I handed both envelopes to Jonah and went inside. Lavender candles, clean sheets, my robe folded at the foot of the bed. He'd prepared everything. Because while my own family left me for cocktails and cruise buffets, the man I married learned my favorite tea brand and changed the sheets himself. I slept like I hadn't in years. The next morning, the calls started. Unknown numbers, then blocked numbers, then a sobbing voicemail from my mom. We didn't know how bad it was. We were just trying to let you have your space. But now the mortgage is behind. The power company is threatening to shut everything off. Can we just talk? She didn't ask if I was okay. Just begged me to fix the world they'd broken. I played it on speaker while Jonah flipped pancakes. "They still think you're gonna swoop in and save them," he said. "They haven't noticed the cape's gone," I muttered. I called my lawyer after breakfast. It's time I told her. Move forward with the paperwork, all of it. She didn't ask for details. She knew. We'd already gone over it weeks ago. It was just a matter of hitting submit. My family was about to meet the version of me that didn't just give. She took back. That weekend, Drew tried one last thing. She called Jonah. "I'm just worried," she said, with a fake sweetness that made his skin crawl. "Riley's not thinking straight. She's making irrational choices. She might need someone to step in, like a conservator or something." My husband's silence must have scared her because she kept rambling. I'm not saying she's crazy, just vulnerable. You know how it is after a head injury. What if someone manipulates her, like a new will or financial changes? He hung up and called our lawyer immediately. She's building a case for guardianship, the lawyer confirmed. It's a reach, but with the right manipulation, judges can be swayed. Can we stop it? I asked. Not only that, she replied, we can counter it with documentation, history, and evidence of intent, which you have. Jonah printed everything that afternoon. Emails, bank transfers, screenshots of her vacation selfies while I lay unconscious. Every piece of paper told the same story. Riley Madison, the so-called freeloader, had been funding the entire family's lifestyle since she was 23. And they had the nerve to say I needed a guardian. I was done playing defense. The next day, I sent one final group email. Short, precise, unmistakable. I am of sound mind and stronger will. All financial ties are severed. All future attempts to interfere with my autonomy will be treated as harassment. This is not a request. This is notice. I expected rage, drama, accusations, but instead they went quiet. That was worse, because silence from manipulative people never means acceptance. It means plotting. So I stayed alert. My lawyer filed a cease and desist. Jonah changed our home security codes. We even got a new mailbox. You'd think I was being paranoid. But you'd also think my own mother wouldn't toast to my absence with a mimosa. Weeks passed. Life felt different, lighter. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I went for walks without checking my phone every 5 minutes. I even stopped apologizing before sharing my opinions. I was relearning who I was without the weight of people who only loved the parts of me they could spend. And then came the moment I didn't expect. The foreclosure notice on their house. They hadn't just missed a few payments. They hadn't paid in months. And I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. Because consequences aren't cruelty. They're truth in motion. And my family was finally learning what truth looked like without me funding their fiction. They didn't go down quietly. Of course they didn't. People like that never do. 2 weeks after the foreclosure notice, I got a certified letter shoved into our mailbox. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize. My stomach flipped the second I saw Drew's name in the subject line. Petition for temporary guardianship. Filed in state court. Signed, notarized, and laughable. She was really doing it, trying to legally take control of my life. I sat in silence for a full minute. Not sad, not scared, just amazed at the level of delusion. Drew had called me unstable in her statement, said I was impulsive, financially reckless, and isolated from reality since the accident. Her proof was the fact that I cut them off, refused visitors, and, quote, declined support from those who love her. I almost laughed. Love. That wasn't love. That was a leash, and I finally snapped it. Jonah found me reading the letter, dead quiet, eyes locked on the page. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there reading the energy. He always did that, waited to match my storm instead of rushing to fix it. Then finally, how do you want to handle this? My voice came out flat, cold. We go scorched earth. We called our lawyer. She was already ahead of it. She filed in a lower court, hoping to catch you off guard. We are filing a response and a motion to dismiss, but if you're willing, I'd recommend counteraction. Not just defense, full exposure. You mean a lawsuit? Not just that, she said. Let's shine a spotlight so bright that she can't lie in the shadows anymore. I nodded. Then let's burn it all down. We gathered everything. I mean everything. 15 years of transfers, receipts, emails where I bailed them out, screenshots of Drew's own posts bragging about vacations she couldn't have paid for on her salary. And the salary itself verified. Less than 10 grand a year. She hadn't worked full-time since college. Meanwhile, I had paid their mortgage, their car insurance, their health premiums. And she called me unstable. I was the backbone they'd mistaken for a doormat. Our lawyer submitted the counter petition a day later. She also filed a defamation claim for good measure. The court set a hearing for 3 weeks out. We'd get our day. But before then, something unexpected happened. My father called. I didn't answer the first time, or the second. But on the third try, something inside me said, "Pick up." So I did. His voice sounded heavier than I remembered. Slower. Older. "Riley," he said, like it hurt to say my name. "We need to talk." I stayed silent. He took that as permission. I didn't know she was doing all this. The court thing. The paperwork. I swear I didn't know. That made me blink. "You didn't know. I found out this morning. There was a letter on the table. And your mother? She knew, but she didn't stop it. That last part was no surprise. She said Drew was just trying to protect the family." He continued. "But I told her it's gone too far. You nearly died and we..." He trailed off, voice cracking. "We failed you." I waited, let the silence hang. "Riley," he said again, "can I ask you something? Not about money, just what's really going on with Drew?" I let out a slow breath. Then I told him everything. The truth, from the beginning. That Drew had never paid a single cent toward the house. That every promotion she claimed was a lie. That every check with my signature kept food on their table, not hers. And most of all, that she had convinced them I was weak so they wouldn't question her power. My dad didn't interrupt. When I finished, he whispered, "All those years, I thought..." Another pause. "I thought you were just quiet." I didn't realize it was exhaustion. That's the part that nearly broke me. Because I had been exhausted. But not just physically. I was emotionally bankrupt. You give and give thinking they'll notice. But they don't. They just open their hands wider. "I didn't call to beg," he said softly. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I didn't say anything, but I didn't hang up either. When the call ended, I sat there for a while, thinking. Maybe part of him meant it. Maybe not. But that wasn't the point. The point was I was done reacting. I was acting now. And Drew's lies were finally heading for the light. The day of the hearing arrived on a Tuesday morning. The courtroom was quiet, carpeted, and cold. Drew walked in wearing a blazer I recognized. I'd bought it for her 3 birthdays ago. Her hair was tied back like she was doing damage control. Mom sat behind her tight-lipped eyes flickering with tension. Dad wasn't there. I wasn't surprised. The judge reviewed both filings, asked for statements. Drew's lawyer stood up first. She painted a picture of a woman, me, allegedly erratic and unstable since her accident. Said I'd made drastic, reckless changes to my estate and finances that concerned the family. She tried to sound sympathetic, like they were just trying to help. Then my lawyer stood, and she brought the thunder. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Every word hit like steel. "Your Honor, my client, Riley Madison, was not acting erratically. She was reclaiming autonomy. For over a decade, she financially supported her parents and sister with documented evidence of over $750,000 in transfers. During her medical crisis, while unconscious in the ICU, her family vacationed using her money and referred to her as a mooch online. Since her recovery, she has acted with clarity, restraint, and dignity. Her sister's petition is not an act of care. It's retaliation for losing financial access." Then she handed the judge a folder. Inside proof, screenshots, bank records, social posts, all of it. Drew's face went pale. Her lawyer tried to pivot, but it was too late. The judge dismissed the guardianship petition immediately. No further comment. And when we walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel rage. I felt something else. Relief. Not because I won, but because I survived. And because the truth was no longer a burden. It was a sword. That night, I got one last message from Drew. It said, "Congrats. Hope your peace keeps you warm when you're alone." I didn't reply, but I whispered back just to myself, "It will." And it did, because peace doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be real. A week after court, I received a notice in the mail that felt like the final domino falling. The house I'd paid for, the one they lived in rent-free for nearly 15 years, was officially listed for auction. The bank had moved fast. I read the letter once, then set it aside without emotion. There was nothing left to save. Not the house, not the history, not the illusion. Later that afternoon, Jonah found me in the backyard, sitting barefoot on the porch steps, a cup of tea growing cold in my hands. "It's happening," I said without looking at him. "The house goes up next month. Someone else will live in it. Someone who doesn't know what it cost me." He sat beside me, didn't say a word, just wrapped his hand around mine. That was all I needed. Not sympathy, just presence. For years, I had begged for that from people who couldn't even spell the word. I thought that would be the end of it. I had closed the door, locked it, and tossed the key. But the past doesn't knock politely. Sometimes it kicks the door open when you least expect it. 2 days later, I received an email from a stranger. Subject line: "You don't know me, but I think we need to talk." The sender's name was Amanda Reyes. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam, but something made me open it. The message was short, direct. "I used to work with Drew. I saw what happened in court. I thought you should know. She lied about more than just your money." There it was, the sentence that pulled me backward. Amanda included a phone number. Against every instinct, I called it. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was low, cautious. "I'm sorry to reach out like this. I just didn't know who else to tell." I asked her what she meant. She exhaled. "I worked at a digital marketing startup with Drew about 4 years ago. She told everyone she had a rich sister who paid her rent and treated her like garbage. Said you were controlling, narcissistic, claimed you were emotionally abusive. I stayed quiet, the words falling around me like dust. She used your money to look generous," Amanda continued. "Bought lunches for people at work, pretended she was the one funding her parents. And when anyone questioned her income, she said it wasn't their business because she had family leverage." Family leverage. I closed my eyes, and for a moment, I wasn't on the phone. I was back at a Christmas dinner 5 years ago. Drew passing out gifts, Mom bragging about how successful she'd become. I remembered sitting there pretending not to hear them call me too serious, too driven, too cold. Amanda's voice softened. "I didn't believe it all, honestly. You always sounded like the one keeping the lights on. Why tell me now?" I asked. She hesitated. "Because she applied for a job at my new company last month. She used me as a reference. I didn't lie for her." I thanked her and hung up. Jonah came into the room just then, carrying groceries, humming softly to himself. I didn't speak, just handed him my phone. He read the email, jaw tightening. "That tracks," he muttered. "She needed you to be the villain, so she could play the victim. And she played it well, but masks always crack." The foreclosure auction was public. I didn't attend. I didn't need to. But someone sent me a picture anyway. It was the house, my childhood home, now reduced to a sign on a lawn and a list of pending bids. The caption read, "Prime fixer-upper, motivated seller, priced to move." The irony was thick. That house had moved through my veins for years, drained me dry, and now it was just a bullet point in someone else's portfolio. Later that evening, Dad called again. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut told me to pick up. His voice was quieter this time, less defensive. "They sold it. To some out-of-state buyer," he said. "We have 30 days to move." "I'm sorry," I replied. And I meant it, not because I felt guilty, but because I knew what it meant to lose something you thought you'd never have to earn. There was a pause. "I still don't understand all of it," he said. "But I'm starting to. You were always the quiet one, the one who just handled things." "Because no one else would," I said. "You looked at Drew and saw possibility. You looked at me and saw a safety net." He didn't deny it. "Where will you go?" I asked, surprising even myself. "Not sure," he said. "Your mom's staying with her sister. I'm looking at some rooms downtown." I said nothing. He added, "Drew's gone. Packed a bag and left last night. Didn't say where. Just said she was tired of being blamed." That sounded about right. When we hung up, I sat with the silence for a long time. I thought it would feel like victory, but it didn't. It felt like closure. Not triumphant, just final. That same week, I got another letter. This time handwritten. This one was from my mom. "Riley, I don't know what to say anymore. Maybe there's nothing left to say. I thought I was protecting Drew. I thought you didn't need protecting. You always seemed so strong. But now I see that maybe you were strong because you had to be. And I was wrong for never asking how heavy that strength was. I didn't cry. I didn't forgive her either. I just folded the letter, placed it in the back of a drawer, and moved on. The next morning, Jonah brought me coffee and leaned against the counter. "I have something for you," he said, sliding an envelope toward me. Inside was a brochure, writing workshops, memoir coaching. "You've been telling your story for years," he said. "Maybe it's time you tell it on your terms." I stared at the paper, then at him. "You really think people would care?" He smiled. "They'll care because you do." And so I started writing. Not for them, not for revenge, not even for closure, but for the woman I used to be. The one who sat in silence signing checks she couldn't afford to give. The one who smiled through holidays that made her feel invisible. The one who was always the support beam, never the celebration. Her voice mattered, and I was finally giving it room. The first draft was terrible. I wrote it at 3 a.m., sitting cross-legged on the living room rug surrounded by tea mugs and half-burnt candles. It wasn't just messy, it was raw, disorganized, like years of silence had spilled out all at once. But it was honest. And that's where I started. I called the project Blood Doesn't Equal Bond. A quiet title, but loud enough for the people who needed it. I shared my story without naming names, without pointing fingers, just laying the truth down like stones across a river. The nights I paid rent so others could celebrate. The birthdays where I got a thank you text 3 days late. The cruise, the coma. The lie they built to make me look small. I expected a few readers, maybe some quiet support. Instead, it spread like wildfire. By the third day, the post had been shared over 20,000 times. My inbox filled with strangers' stories. Women who paid for their brothers' weddings only to be called selfish when they couldn't cover the honeymoon. Men who took second jobs to support parents who turned around and said they never helped with anything. Messages came from everywhere. Different countries, different ages, same wound, same ache, and the same breaking point. I started replying one by one. Each message deserved more than a thank you. These people weren't just reacting. They were remembering, reclaiming. One woman wrote, "I've been sending my family money for 12 years. My mom called me cruel when I finally said no. Reading your story made me feel like I wasn't a bad daughter." Another said, "I left my father's house at 17. He told people I was a runaway. Really, I was escaping. I never looked back. But I still carry guilt. Your story cracked something open in me. Thank you." Each word hit like wind under wings I didn't realize I had. I wasn't alone. I had never been alone. I just didn't know how many people had been taught that love means debt. That family means giving until you disappear. Jonah watched it all unfold quietly. He never tried to take credit, never once said, "I told you so." Instead, he made space. Sometimes that's the greatest kind of love, not rescue, just quiet support at your side while you rescue yourself. Within a month, an editor from a publishing house reached out. She said my story had power. She wanted to help shape it into a memoir. I didn't say yes right away. I was scared. Not of writing, but of being fully seen. Once the pages went out, there'd be no hiding behind polite smiles or birthday money. But then I thought of Amanda, of that woman from Canada who sent me a poem about her sister's betrayal, of the man in Brazil who said he read my blog with his daughter and cried for the first time in years. If my story could become a key for others to unlock their voice, then I'd write every word. So I said yes. And I didn't hold back. A few months later, the first draft of the manuscript was finished. It wasn't just a retelling, it was a reckoning. Each chapter was a lesson I had learned the hard way: how to identify emotional leeches, how to set financial boundaries without guilt, how to stop mistaking silence for peace. I sent it off to the publisher and waited, nervous but proud. Meanwhile, life kept moving. The house my family lost had been sold to a property developer. They stripped it, gutted it, repainted the siding, and listed it as a modern renovation with classic charm. I drove past it once. Just once. Sat across the street in Jonah's car watching people walk through it with brochures in hand. I didn't feel sadness or even nostalgia. I just felt distance. That house didn't hold me anymore. It held a version of me that had been trained to please. And that version was gone. A week later, I got a call from my dad. I almost didn't answer, but I did. He sounded tired, weary in a way that didn't ask for anything. "Riley," he said. "I heard about the blog." I braced myself. I read it. He paused. "I think it was all true. I didn't want it to be. But it was. That silence between us didn't feel hostile anymore. Just clean." He continued, "I believed Drew because it was easier than facing the truth. Easier than admitting we leaned on you like a crutch. I didn't realize how much weight you were carrying. I listened waiting." "I don't expect forgiveness," he said quietly. "I just hope you don't carry that weight anymore. You never should have had to." I thanked him. Genuinely. Not because it fixed things, but because acknowledgement matters. And then came the message I hadn't expected. From Drew. No call this time. No voicemail. Just an email. One sentence. "I lied because I wanted to be loved the way they loved you." I read it 5 times. Then I deleted it. Because truth without accountability is just manipulation in a nicer font. The book launched in the spring. It hit bestseller lists within 2 weeks. I did podcasts, interviews, panel discussions, and everywhere I went, the story resonated. People didn't care about the drama. They cared about the mirror. My pain was their reflection. My decision to walk away gave others permission to do the same. At one event, a young woman approached me, shaking. My mom always told me family came first. That's why I gave her half my paychecks. But when I lost my job, she said I'd failed her. Your book helped me realize I didn't fail. I was just finally choosing me. She cried. I cried. The world kept turning. And then something happened that caught me completely off guard. Jonah and I were eating dinner on the back patio, the air soft and warm when he handed me an envelope. "Came in the mail today." I opened it, assuming it was another letter from the publisher or a reader. But it wasn't. It was legal, a small inheritance. From my grandfather, someone I barely knew. Apparently he'd passed away years ago, but a trust had recently matured, and I'd been listed as the sole recipient. I stared at the number, speechless. "You okay?" Jonah asked. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, it just feels poetic. The one person who never asked me for anything left me everything." He smiled. "You earned it, without asking for anything back." That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in my lap, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not relief. Not pride. But peace. The kind that doesn't depend on who shows up. The kind you build yourself. It's strange how quiet freedom feels. I thought it would be loud, like thunder cracking through the sky, like a scream that finally breaks through your chest. But it wasn't. It was soft, almost sacred, like the sound of your own breath when no one's asking you to give more than you have. That was the world I woke up in now. Not chaos, not guilt, just space. 6 months had passed since the book launch. I was traveling more. Speaking at universities, nonprofits, even small community circles that reminded me why I wrote it in the first place. Not for applause, not for revenge, but because somewhere out there was someone like me, sitting quietly trying to explain to herself why giving wasn't enough, why her family only loved her in ways that cost her something. Those were the people I wrote for, and they found me again and again. There was a girl named Misha, 17, living with her aunt after her mother left. She showed up to one of my events clutching a dog-eared copy of my book. Said it gave her the words she never had. Then there was Jorge, a retired teacher who whispered through tears that he had drained his entire pension supporting a brother who never even called on his birthday. I thought being good meant being empty, he said. But now I know better. Every time I heard their stories, I felt the pieces of myself gently return. I wasn't broken. I had just been rearranged by other people's needs. Now I was putting myself back together, but differently this time, on my terms. Jonah and I grew closer during that time, not because of the chaos, but because of the quiet that followed. We had more dinners with no phones, longer walks without talking, just being. Some nights we'd sit in the living room reading our own books, but resting our feet against each other. That's what safety feels like, not being rescued, but being seen without needing to explain. One night, I asked him something that had lingered for a while. Do you ever wish I had a normal family? You know, like the kind that shows up with casseroles and matching t-shirts? He laughed, low and warm. You think I want to wear matching shirts with people who call you a freeloader? I smiled. He leaned over and kissed my forehead. You are my family. That's more than enough. It was. The letter came a month later. Another one from my mother. But this one was different. There was no guilt, no emotional blackmail, just honesty. She wrote, Riley, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe you shouldn't. But I've started therapy. Real therapy. I didn't go to fix you. I went to understand why I believed the things I believed. Why I allowed one daughter to shine and the other to suffer. I've realized something awful. That I confused love with control. And that I treated your silence like agreement when it was actually pain. She ended with a sentence I never expected. If peace for you means never seeing us again, then I accept that. But if there's ever a door cracked open even an inch, I'll be on the other side waiting without demands. I folded the letter slowly and placed it in a box. I didn't reply. Not yet. Maybe never. Because forgiveness isn't a door I owe someone. It's a space I have to build for myself brick by honest brick. Spring arrived. I was invited to deliver a keynote in D.C., a national summit on boundaries and financial autonomy. Me, the girl who once couldn't say no without feeling sick, now standing on a stage talking to 500 people about the power of that one little word, no. After the talk, a woman from the back of the room approached. Mid-30s, dressed in jeans and a plain t-shirt, nothing flashy. She said I haven't spoken to my parents in 2 years. They cut me off after I refused to co-sign a loan for my brother. Your story helped me realize that protecting yourself isn't betrayal. I nodded. It's survival, I replied. As she walked away, I looked around the room. All these strangers who were once quiet like I used to be now holding their stories with both hands ready to let them go or pass them on. It hit me then. What I had created wasn't just a blog or a book. It was a map, a path out of a forest so many people were born into but never taught how to leave. Back home, I started something new, a nonprofit, Chosen Family Project. It would provide emotional and legal resources for people trying to escape financial abuse within families. We partnered with therapists, lawyers, coaches. The website went live on a Wednesday morning. By that evening, over 4,000 people had signed up for the newsletter. Jonah made us dinner that night, pasta and red wine. We toasted on the porch. To building a family by choice, I said, and never again being afraid of our own lives. That night, I slept deeper than I had in years. It's been over a year now. Drew never reached out again. Last I heard, she moved across the country, got a job at a bookstore. Maybe she changed. Maybe she didn't. But that's not my chapter anymore. As for my parents, I occasionally get updates. Nothing dramatic, just small mentions from distant relatives or neighbors. They're okay. Not thriving, not sinking, just living their version of life. And I'm okay with that. Because here's the truth. I wish someone had told me sooner blood is an origin, not a destiny. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect your peace, even if the people you're protecting it from share your last name. Love that costs your well-being isn't love. It's survival wrapped in shame. My name is Riley Madison. I'm a daughter, a wife, a survivor, and now a storyteller. And this is my story. Not a tragedy, not a warning, but a declaration. That freedom isn't found in waiting for others to treat you better. It's found the moment you decide they no longer get to decide your worth. At the end of my book's second edition, I added a short message. One I'll share here too, in case you're still trying to choose yourself. You are not selfish for wanting peace. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not wrong for walking away from a family that never saw your value. Love yourself the way they never did. Then surround yourself with people who reflect that love back. That's your real family, and you deserve it. Story 2. She ought to repay that mortgage in full. Then you ought to interrupt her. I'd be embarrassed to even refer to her as family. Holding the tickets for my parents' ideal vacation to Europe, I reached for the doorknob of their home with a hopeful heart. It had taken me months to save the funds to provide them with the trip they had dreamed about for years. I pictured them as a happy, appreciative family enjoying their 50th anniversary together. However, I heard something that completely altered my plans right before I opened the door. What a loser she is. It's embarrassing. Without a doubt, that was my sister. The voice of Michelle. I held my breath, frozen in place. I'm eager for her to finish paying off the mortgage. My face was emptied of blood. They were referring to me who had diligently paid off the mortgage each month for 15 years, all in order to support my family when my parents retire. For a future I thought we had in common. I then heard my mother's response. Everything has already started. Do not be concerned. I had shaking hands. I took out my phone and pressed the record button. They would subsequently claim that there was a misunderstanding if I failed to record this occasion. She uses her small fake job to play home. She is pitiful. She is incapable of doing anything. Michelle's derisive tone struck a deep chord with them. Both the elder care facility I created from the ground up and my nursing job were meaningless. They often laughed behind my back, thought it was only a temporary care facility, and wondered when I would get a real job. For what purpose had I been working? Making a sacrifice for 36 years. Lucas, my 6-year-old son, who had been waiting in the car, suddenly raced up with worry in his eyes. Are you all right, Mom? You have a really pale face. Gazing into the naive eyes of Lucas. I decided I wouldn't put him in such a poisonous setting. Let's get home, Lucas. I forced a grin as I said. However, what about the celebration hosted by Grandma and Grandpa? We will return at a later time. Mommy isn't feeling well at the moment. Lucas gave a soft nod. All right. When you're not feeling well, I worry. I halted a recording as we made our way back to the vehicle. Every unpleasant reality was revealed in 5 minutes of audio. I was referred to as a loser. They intended to disconnect me as soon as the mortgage was settled. I would never give them tickets to Europe. My sacrifice and love were in that envelope, but it would never get to them, making the drive home. For Lucas's sake, I suppressed the tears that started to flow. I looked in the rearview mirror at him. There was still innocence in his face. No matter what, I had to keep him safe. Something inside of me started to change throughout the 20-minute journey. I have become a disappointment. Disappointment became rage. And that rage gradually turned into a serene, unwavering determination. I was 23 years old and had plans to open my own elder care home 15 years ago. At the time of my father's work troubles and his need for assistance with the home loan, $200,000, seemed like a huge sum. However, I had faith that my company would eventually turn a profit. At that point, Nathan Michelle's lawyer husband gave legal counsel. You will ultimately become the owner of the house if you take over the mortgage. It's a wise purchase. I'll take care of the legal documentation. Motivated by a sense of obligation to my family, I was young and impressionable. I thus concurred. Only 23 years old, I took out a 15-year mortgage to start my business. Month after month, I paid all of my payments. Recollecting all of their expressions of thanks and tears, Nathan offered to assist. Everything had been theatrical and premeditated. For 15 years, I had been used and controlled under the pretense of family. I will never forget the shock I had the next evening upon seeing how thoroughly my love and caring for my family had been taken advantage of. Still standing. Lucas had gone to bed when my husband Nicholas entered the living room with a cup of coffee. Since yesterday, you have been acting strangely. What took place, I paused. Nicholas truly liked my family, especially my father, but I hadn't told him yet. Together, they even went fishing. In fact, I then filled him in on everything. During the anniversary visit, I overheard the exchange. Slowly, his face became stony. He listened to the tape and stated, "I can't believe this. I've personally witnessed how much you've sacrificed for them, how you paid off that mortgage by saving every cent. I made the decision to return to the house the next day." Nicholas protested. "It's risky." "Alyssa, if they discover..." "I need more proof, though. The recording is insufficient." "Then I'll accompany you." He spoke aggressively. "I won't leave you by yourself." In the vehicle, Nicholas waited. Using the extra key, I was not shocked to discover my parents' house was vacant when I got there. I entered and made my way directly to my father's study. I needed additional hard proof since the tape I had made the previous evening might not be sufficient to prove my case in court, while looking at a few documents. On the dining table, I saw my father's phone. He must have forgotten it. I didn't intend to touch it at first. I didn't think he was suspicious. My first search was for financial or legal records pertaining to the family estate. However, there was something about the phone that made me pause. Perhaps the device held the truth if he was indeed concealing something. I was aware of the password. My mother's birthday was that day. I was nearly able to foresee my father's every action after 36 years in this household. My life fell apart at the top of his app's message list as soon as the screen unlocked. One of the names had shaky fingertips. I took it open. A never-ending series of private texts emerged. "I'm taking care to keep Rose in the dark. We can begin our new life in a short while. You're my only option, Susan." It became worse the more I scrolled. "We'll start our new life together when Alyssa completes the mortgage in 3 years. Will you truly abandon Rose Robert naturally? With you, I only see a bright future. Alyssa loves you, though. Do not be concerned. Nathan and Michelle will take care of everything." As I scrolled through the texts, they became increasingly detailed and unsettling. "I will not discuss us with Michelle. All she wants is for Alyssa to be excluded from the inheritance. How about Rose? She won't be aware of anything. Michelle will persuade her. Regardless, she has never been fond of Alyssa." I was having trouble breathing. My mother was unaware of the affair and was unwittingly coerced by Michelle to support their plan. The next thing I looked at was the communications between Michelle and my father. "I appreciate you persuading Mom to agree, Michelle. Dad, the estate truly belongs to me when Alyssa completes the mortgage payment, correct, I swear. Everything is yours as long as you can convince Mom." I reassured her that she shouldn't be concerned about Alyssa. She earns enough money. Excellent. Alyssa has no suspicions. I was trembling all the time. In order to get the inheritance, my sister had lied to my mother, in order to guarantee a future with his lover. My father was also exploiting me. I began by looking through the contact list at my father's place of employment in order to determine the real identity of his lover, S. Looking through my father's company's personnel list, Susan Miller. I located her. He and a coworker were having an affair. And it wasn't just that. I came over an email exchange between my father and Nathan Michelle's husband regarding a legal consultation. A timetable for mortgage payments and a thorough strategy to legally exclude me from the inheritance were attached when the mortgage was settled. Every aspect of their planning was predicated on the idea that I would keep making payments for 3 more years. They would then give everything to Michelle and shut me off from the estate. As if the scandal of my father's affair wasn't enough. Finding the ruthless, well-thought-out strategy that had laid out every aspect of my existence hurt me even more. I saved as many of Susan's texts as I could and hastily snapped pictures of the proof. Nicholas asked me what had occurred after glancing at my pale face when I got back to the car. I presented the screenshots to him. He balled his fists. "They want to force you to leave as soon as the mortgage is paid off and your dad is having an affair." Nathan is involved in 3 years. He advised them on legal matters. Nicholas's voice trembled as he replied, "This is not forgivable. I held your father in high regard. He was a wonderful grandfather to Lucas, in my opinion. I wouldn't have known if I hadn't located his phone." I was trembling as I spoke. I didn't suspect him, not once. We went to a lawyer's office together the next day. As we told attorney Jessica Irving everything, Nicholas held my hand tightly. She looked over the records and remarked, "This is an interesting case. However, we have a chance if they're holding off on paying off the mortgage. The following 3 years will allow us to compile even more compelling evidence and formulate a sound legal plan." 3 years. Melissa, I was in disbelief. We could file right away, but the fraudulent intent will be obvious if we wait until the mortgage is paid off. And you'll have a much stronger case. Nicholas raised his voice. Are you implying that Alyssa must continue making mortgage payments for an additional 3 years? Indeed. It's a difficult choice. However, it's the best course of action if complete restitution is your aim. In order to prevent giving them away or encouraging them to destroy evidence, I also suggest that you keep your contact with them to a minimum during those years. I inhaled deeply, pretending for another 3 years. Another 3 years of concealing the truth. But I had to complete what I had begun for Lucas's sake, his future, and my own justice. Okay, I had already decided. Within 3 years of the mortgage being paid off in full, I will finally put an end to it all. Without hesitation, Nicholas said, "I stand with my wife completely. If necessary, I will cover all of the costs. It's unacceptable what Alyssa has endured." I realized how much I depended on Nicholas's strength as I signed the formal paperwork. My real family stood at my side, despite the fact that my own blood had betrayed me. Nicholas and I sat down to talk about the idea that evening when I got back from the legal office. How can I keep my distance from them for 3 years without raising suspicions, I inquired. Anxiety begins to seep in. They'll notice if you draw away too quickly. Therefore, within the first 6 months, we will provide them natural explanations. I give the justification that I'm overworked in the care facility. You must be tired, Alyssa. On the phone, my mother said. I made sure I sounded worn out. I apologize, ma'am. I just cannot leave as we embark new residents. You're putting forth so much effort. Do you look after yourself? I am, but this Sunday's family supper will be missed. I must complete the papers. She sounded worried. Don't exert too much effort on yourself. Her generosity made me feel bad. Michelle even made contact. You've been so busy recently, Alyssa. Are you going too far? I appreciate it, Michelle, but I have to concentrate on putting the company back on track. By the 8th month, I was able to justify missing about half of the weekend events by citing the development of the staff training system. This Saturday, you are unable to attend again. My father's voice was a little sharp when he inquired. Your commitment to your job is admirable, but remember to take care of your family as well. That seemed hypocritical and empty to me. I signed Lucas up for additional weekend activities, and sometimes I used my illness as an excuse to skip out. I gradually ceased being present, virtually, completely. Will you be attending Mom's birthday this year, Alyssa? Michelle inquired. I apologize, but that week we have an audit. I'd want to be there. Although it was more painful than I anticipated, missing my mother's birthday was a necessary sacrifice for the plan to work. Then I suggested a family party a month before the mortgage was due. A farewell time spent together presented as a happy occasion. Finally, sitting down to discuss will be pleasant. Every one of us. On the phone, I said, my mom sounded quite happy. Indeed, it will. In my heart, I said farewell silently as I answered with a grin. You did that for 3 solid years, Nicholas told me later. You have acting abilities comparable to those of a professional. It wasn't a performance, I said, completely exhausted. It hurt. Guilt almost drowned me. Nevertheless, the well-planned distance was effective. They had become accustomed to my alleged independence and hectic schedule. I had been planning for this moment all along, and none of them realized it. The day of reckoning had finally come. Finally, after 3 years of stillness and constraint, something positive was on the horizon, on the day of the family get-together. Nervousness caused my hands to shake. It was only a celebration of the mortgage being paid off on the surface. In actuality, however, it served as a platform for planned retaliation. I had been working with Jessica for the last 3 years to collect evidence and construct a case. The pinnacle of it all was today. "Are you all right?" Nicholas put a kind hand on my shoulder and inquired. "This is not required of you. I'm able to take your position." "No, I've got to get this done." I inhaled deeply. "I'll be there in half an hour if everything goes wrong," Nicholas pledged. "I've already informed Lucas that you're going to a crucial meeting," and he grasped my hand tightly. "After you're finished, let's have a great meal for him. Only the 3 of us." I was wearing my most businesslike outfit when I got to my parents' house, a navy blue pantsuit, a necklace of pearls around my neck, and a tablet containing important evidence in my hand. It wasn't a caregiver's uniform. It was the battle-ready armor of a lady. "Alyssa, it's been a long time." I saw a tinge of stress in my mother's grin when she greeted me. "Mom, Dad, Michelle, Nathan." I bowed gently and called each of them by name. "We appreciate you coming here and taking the time out of your schedules." My dad took a look at the bag I was toting. "You have a lot of stuff with you." Just like Nicholas and I had practiced, I grinned. These documents are crucial. We went inside the dining room once and took a seat there. I grabbed the head of the table and plugged my tablet into the big screen TV. My family's expressions changed to one of bewilderment. "I must make a crucial announcement," I remarked as I stood up and lifted my glass. "I've been searching for the truth for the last 3 years, and I want to share what I discovered today." I started by playing the sounds I had captured 3 years prior during their 50th anniversary. Michelle's voice referring to me as a failure, the comprehensive plot to exclude me with my mother's consent. Their shouts cut through the quiet as they reverberated across the space. The importance of this recording was obvious now that the mortgage had been paid off as intended. Today marks 1 week since the mortgage was paid off in full, and this tape was recorded precisely 3 years ago. Calmly, I explained. Michelle's face became white. "You've known all along, Alyssa, indeed. For 3 years knowing everything, I continued to pay, on my lawyer's recommendation. However, that was just the start." My dad got up. "You have been deceiving us for 3 years, then no. The one who lied was you." I then displayed screen grabs of his and Susan Miller's chats. "I've been working with legal counsel to gather evidence for the past 3 years, allowing your strategy to play out just as you had planned." The space became frigid. "Would you mind sharing the details of your 13-year romance with Miss Susan Miller, Dad?" He lost the color in his face. And I went on, by the way. "I've talked to Susan's husband already. I also believed that he was entitled to the truth." My mother yelled at my father as she suddenly stood up. "Is this accurate, Robert? For more than a decade, you have been unfaithful to me." I then showed the whole mortgage repayment history for 18 years. "I paid this because I adore this family." I spoke aggressively. Nathan's phone started to type rapidly. I gave him a direct look. "Nathan, you have previously backed up all of the legal papers you are attempting to remove. I have documentation of every item of advice you offered me to assist keep me out of the inheritance." Chaos broke out in the room. A vase was thrown by my mother. Michelle started crying. Even though my father made a lot of explanations, it was too late. I turned toward the front door and stood calmly. "Our relationship is ended as of right now." The door suddenly sprang open as my father seized my wrist in a fit of wrath. "Release her!" "Nicholas." His voice was thundering, but quiet. It was the first time I had ever seen that look on his face. "Nicholas," my father, clearly frightened, mumbled. "Dad." "Not at all, Robert." Nicholas ceased phoning him. "Dad, never again touch my wife." I'll call the cops if you go any closer. Immediately, the room's vibe changed. The storm was quieted by Nicholas. You too participated in this scheme, Robert stumbled. Is there a conspiracy? Nicholas sneered. What Alyssa has endured over the last 3 years is beyond your comprehension. Making each payment required fortitude, heartache, and worry. He took a step forward. For the past 3 years, we have been getting ready for this moment. Alyssa still loved her family, so she gave you every chance. But your strategy remained the same. He led the way to the door. All correspondence now passes through. Our lawyer. He assisted me in putting on my coat. You succeeded. He hugged me while whispering. In the automobile, you never have to glance behind. When the tears finally fell, I felt a wave of relief and fatigue. Nicholas remained silent. He just silently caressed my back. How can we tell Lucas about this? I cried as I asked. Nicholas added softly, let's tell him the truth in a way he can understand. We don't have to tell lies. We'll explain it to him in terms he can comprehend. He will realize that his mother made the proper choice a week following the disclosure. My mother called in a panic when Nicholas and I were working on Lucas's schoolwork. Alyssa, her voice faltered. I submitted a divorce petition. I can't continue to share your father's house any longer. I was taken aback. My mother divorcing my father was unexpected. To be honest, I assumed they would blame me and remain husband and wife. He admitted everything Susan stated when I challenged him about it. Alyssa, 13 years. I was an idiot. While he was squandering his money on that woman, you were covering the whole mortgage. On the other end of the telephone, I could hear her sobbing. Overnight, a 50-year marriage was broken. But Mama, I added in a hesitant tone, didn't you consent to the plot to exclude me from the family? There was a lengthy wait before she gave a quiet response. Michelle coerced me into doing it. I didn't really get how much your sacrifices meant. I apologize, but I had already made up my mind, Alyssa. I've made the decision to sever all contact with the family mom. I'm done running the danger of being taken advantage of or deceived. Nicholas gave me a worried look as I hung up. How is your mother doing? When I clarified, his face became nuanced. I'm shocked, to be honest. I genuinely believed that they would turn against you and remain together. I did too. My mother began phoning more often after that. Universities, financial concerns, and loneliness. One night, after another lengthy chat, she brought them all to me. Nicholas spoke softly. You don't have to provide your mother with emotional support, Alyssa. But now she's alone. That's what she chose, he answered firmly but politely. For 39 years, you have been the emotional bearer of your family. It's time to put our family and yourself first. Nicholas took the day off to accompany me to the court hearing 2 months later. The formal recognition of my father's financial abuse and fraudulent activity was made possible by Jessica Irving's clever legal effort. I thus mandate that the defendants provide the plaintiff with 80% of the whole mortgage amount. My knees almost buckled with relief when the decision was read. Nicholas supported me. Although it wasn't a complete recovery, it was confirmation. After 15 years of battle, it was eventually recognized. Upon leaving the courthouse, Michelle rushed at me along the corridor. Alyssa, are we not still sisters? Nicholas moved ahead of me right away. There is a restraining order, Michelle. We'll call the cops if you get any closer. Nicholas, even you. We are family, though. Silently, he stated that blood does not define family. The foundation of a family bond is love and respect. You forfeited that. I opened a college fund for Lucas that evening using a portion of the salary. The remainder was used to expand the care facility. Leaving the past behind and creating something for the future was my first real step forward. Nicholas held my hand and remarked, "It's finally paid off after 18 years of hard work. Without you, I couldn't have completed this." With much appreciation, I answered. I would have given up in the middle if I had been by alone. You were never alone yourself. We are yours." I felt a peaceful assurance from his comments. This really was the start of something new. Our lives had become more prosperous than I could have ever dreamed a year after the verdict. The residents expressed their sincere gratitude to us, and we employed 3 additional employees and extended the care facility. Rewards that are worth more than money. "You made the right decision, Alyssa," Nicholas said as he relaxed on the new couch. "We recently purchased. Over the past year, you've undergone significant transformation. Your genuine smile has returned." He was correct. I felt as though my heavy chains had finally been lifted. No more mortgage payments, no more playing with emotions. I was really liberated. Since then, my parents' side has not communicated with us. An afternoon with a crisp bottom. It was my cousin Ben who called me. "I believe you should be aware of anything regarding your parents, Alyssa." A beat skipped in my chest. "Is there a problem?" With caution, he continued. "It's about Aunt Rose. You are aware that the divorce is final. She currently lives alone, nevertheless. A 1-bedroom apartment in the heart of the city." "I understand." Uncertain of how to react, I answered. "It's difficult. She reportedly had to take a part-time work at a grocery shop since she was having financial difficulties. Starts work at 6 a.m., 5 days a week, until 200 p.m. His tone was one of sincere pity. Squeezing my chest was the thought of my mother working early shifts at a convenience shop. Ben went on, "I see her occasionally at family gatherings, but she looks older. She mostly just sits by herself in silence, occasionally whispering things like, 'If only Alyssa were here.'" Nicholas silently observed me, his expression displaying worry. Ben's tone grew harsher as he stated, "Robert's situation is even worse. I take it you've heard that Susan is no longer with you. She moved out of state for a new job." "She did. In the course of the divorce procedures, her spouse requested payment from your father. It was, I believe, around $15,000 for 10 years of adultery." I took a deep breath, and for my father, $15,000 was no little sum. In addition to the legal bills, he owes you $70,000 in damages. It's quite a bit. He is having severe financial difficulties. After a moment of hesitation, Ben said, "The large house is too much for me alone, and the maintenance expenses are wearing me out. I've heard he's considering selling it, but he won't have much left even after paying back your investment portion." Nicholas received a call a few weeks later from an old college buddy who was employed at the legal practice where Michelle's husband Nathan worked. Nathan's family's situation is deteriorating. The legal community no longer respects him. Following your sister-in-law's ordeal, according to his clients, he made financial abuse possible. His reputation has been destroyed. Nicholas pressed for further information. It seems that he has been marginalized even within the company. His pay was reduced. Moreover, Michelle never had a job. They're having financial difficulties, everyday expenses, and school charges. They're being caught up with. They're even talking. Because of the stress, he has started drinking more. The buddy went on to say that Michelle has been looking for part-time employment, but it's difficult after years of being a stay-at-home mother. They are always fighting. Nathan's yelling was heard by one of their neighbors. "My career was ruined by your family, but at that point it all seemed like a thing of the past, remote, unimportant." After the call, Nicholas said, "Alyssa, you're a strong woman." I took his hand and squeezed it back gently. "Aren't we now truly family? Where will we spend the upcoming holiday?" "Mom?" 10-year-old Lucas emerged from his room having just completed his schoolwork. We organized a little family vacation each month. Everywhere we traveled, we saw old cities, seaside communities, and mountain chalets. The 3 of us were constantly involved. It was unique because of that. "You get to choose this time." As I ran my fingers through his hair, I spoke. "The Museum of Dinosaurs comes next." Lucas. Excitement glowed in his eyes. It was a very straightforward but really valuable exchange. I used to be constantly thinking about my parents and their never-ending expectations. My whole attention was now on the family, directly before me, Lucas and Nicholas. I learned a priceless lesson this past year. Blood is not what defines a family. It's about love on both sides, confidence and assistance. My family is this: Lucas, Nicholas, and me. And that is more than sufficient.